Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Cory alongside Tanner Lipsett and head coach Tony Ersland. Guys, we've got a duel to talk about, a good victory at Michigan State. We've got the final home duel of the season to talk about later on the show.
It's rivalry week.
When IU comes down, we're going to spend some time on rivalry week. Well, whether it's a rivalry at this point is up for discussion, but we'll talk about that too. First, what's kind of taken the entire wrestling world by storm this week has been the conversation surrounding last week's announcement of NCAA bid allocations to conferences. Coaches' rankings came out as well, the first set of those. We'll get to those too. But let's talk about allocations, Coach. I know, like I said, there's been a ton of discussion about that. Let's go ahead and add to the cacophony of sound on this topic. What are initial thoughts when those were released?
What was that word you just used?
Cacophony. Pretty sure that's how you say it.
Man.
Tanner's running for the dictionary.
Word of the day. Word of the day. Cory.
Yeah, certainly a lot of movement last week. That came out, I think it was Thursday. We were actually on the bus on our way up to Michigan State when they released both the rankings, first set of coaches rankings, and then the allocated spots per conference. And that was based on historical data. As we've discussed before, they went back for the last 5 years and used the average there to come up with the numbers. And they did it by per weight as well as the total number, obviously per conference. That caused a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. I know many coaches aren't happy. And obviously in the Big Ten, we feel similarly, that we were shorted in terms of numbers. What I will say is, the NCAA did leave extra wild cards this year. In the past, we've had 3 or 4. Now, sometimes you have 6 or 7. So they still do have flexibility to kind of reward certain conferences that are deeper in that weight per se more. But it still looks like they're coming up short right now, and we would potentially be leaving a lot of really good kids at home. What I mean by that, one situation I'll point out, and this certainly is not EIWA's fault, okay? I'm not going to lay blame on anybody, but we're going to talk about this being a situation that has caused some people to be upset. Is you have the EIWA, which is the home for the Ivies, right? That's their qualifier. Now, none of the Ivies, all 6 Ivy schools that sponsor wrestling, have decided not to compete, okay? And so that conference retained all of their spots, even though they have 6 schools not competing. So on the face of it, when we first were talking, and what this year would be with a lot of conference-only competition, not as much, opportunities to see people and just wrestle as much, we thought historical data, I think, was a viable solution. But now there's no allowances for changes that have taken place over the last 5 years. And the EIWA, most notably, is those 6 schools not competing. So, for instance, you look, those 6 schools aren't competing, so they have 6 fewer teams in the tournament. However, they have more spots this year than they did last year using data. So obviously that looks a little off, right? That doesn't pass the eye test. So you have a situation like that. And then where we talk about getting the right kids to nationals, I'll use 133 in the Big 12, for instance. Okay.
Crazy.
Have 11 kids currently ranked in the top, I think it's top 20.
I think you're right. I think it's top
30, but 11 out of the 12 kids are highly ranked kids, yet they only have, I think it's maybe 4 spots. 4 spots. Okay, 4 spots. And then consider this, there's only 6 wild cards at the weight. So you either give every kid at the Big 12 a wild card, and you're still short around the country with deserving kids, right? And I know Dayton Fix just made his appearance, so he's not included in that coach's rank. So next ranking period, as long as he has enough matches, all 12 kids should be in that top 20 or 30 at worst, okay? And so that's the situations we're looking at. I could even use 184 in the Big Ten, with how many good kids that we have. We have, I think it's at least 10 of our kids are very highly ranked kids, and we're going to, leave a few of those kids behind as well, possibly. So those are the situations that coaches are looking at and trying to find, equity if we can have it. Everybody understands this is an extraordinary year and we hope it's a one-off, but I think overwhelmingly the concern still is we have some kids who won't come back next year, right? This will be their opportunity. And as long as, they don't have COVID cut short their season or anything like that, they deserve the best opportunity to be there. So it becomes about getting the right kids or the best kids, the most deserving kids to the NCAA tournament. And that's the problem. I'd like to tell you it could be as simple as, hey, can we just take those qualifying spots from the EIWA or any team for that matter, right, that doesn't participate in their conference tournament and put them in the wild card pool to have more flexibility. But I know things aren't always so simple. The NCAA is going to have a lot to consider, because they've already released these qualifiers. So I don't know how comfortable they would be going back and putting more in the wild card pool or kind of revisiting their position. I don't know if that's viable or not. We've not spoken to those people. So these are just my opinions on it. And we'll have to wait and see if this gains any traction or any ground where they could revisit it.
It's interesting, Tony, you talk about, the goal is, and this is the goal every year, the goal is getting the best 33 kids at every weight class to the national tournament for a chance to compete for a national title. It's the crown jewel of the sport. It's got the best viewership. It's got some of the best moments. It's an incredible event. So trying to get the best kids there to create the best possible matches and situation for everybody is always the goal. With that being said, this is, like you said, it's a crazy year, and you've said this before that, with it being a year of extraordinary circumstances, we may need to go to extraordinary measures to get this figured out and to do this. And with that being said, what is the right outcome? Like, what is a possible solution in your mind to redrawing this? Is it a matter of taking spots from one conference to another? Like, how would you, I know I have ideas, but I'm curious as to what you think would be a viable option.
Yeah, no, I think giving yourself more flexibility in this year is absolutely key. And that would be, removing those spots where maybe teams are light, or if teams don't participate, taking those and putting all of those in the wild card pool. Okay. And I'll mention that this is not a novel concept either. In the past, now we've been using, data, right, during the current year, RPI, win percentage, and coaches rank. That's how kids qualified the weight class for their conference. However, if we went into a conference championship, and let's just say Purdue had a young man who had qualified the weight, and that had been one of the spots for the Big Ten. However, he then became sick, ill, injured, whatever, could not compete, and he wasn't at the conference tournament. That spot isn't retained by the Big Ten. That spot goes now into the wild card pool. So in my mind, I think it is viable to take those spots and put them in the wild card pool. So now you have the flexibility to really see how things develop. Okay. It is very early. I know we're coming up on Big Tens here in March 6th, 7th, but it is still early enough where we have time to wait and see how things really develop. So in my mind, let's have more spots allocated, in that wild card pool where you can award them as necessary. And you have the most flexibility. The other thing I think is key as we were looking at it, and I haven't addressed this yet, but the criteria that they're going to use to satisfy people who are eligible for at-large bids is fairly strict. If you look at it, and I won't go through all of it right now, but if people would go and read through it, there's only a handful of guys that actually meet that criteria right now out of everybody because of the limited competition. Usually it's, you've got to have wrestled a qualifier. You got to have a 70% win percentage. You got to, there's all of those things in there. Well, listen, having a 70% win percentage, at least maybe in the Big Ten this year, could be really tough if you're only wrestling a handful of matches.
Brutal.
You're 3-1 or 2-1, let's say you could be a really good kid, a top 8 kid, have a bad weekend. You're not even eligible possibly, right, for a wild card. So
use Max Lyon, for example, Tony.
Say that again?
I said, use Max Lyon, for example. Max Lyon is 3-4 on the season. His 7 matches are all against guys who are ranked in the top 20 in the country at 184 pounds. And he has 3 wins over guys who were ranked in the top 10 in the country at the time and are still all ranked inside the top 15.
Right.
But he's got a 3-4 record.
Right. Yep. And that's why we say you need flexibility. Like somebody like Max, let's say, you use him, he may not meet the criteria. You know what I mean? Now all 3 of his wins would have had not to have made, right? But right now they say you have to have 2 of the 3. I think a common sense thing or a more flexible deal is just say 1. You got to meet 1 of the criteria in such a limited, shortened season. I think you have to give yourself the utmost flexibility. Okay. And so those are the kind of issues that are out there. And I will tell you, I only foresee this problem getting worse. I mentioned Dayton Fix coming out, right, for Oklahoma State. Miles Amin just made his debut, right, for Michigan, who had been
at a different weight
for weeks, and he went up a weight. So this could only happen more and more. Lockhaven just came back, into the mix. So I think we really need to be patient and see where things go and have the utmost flexibility. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I just see that as being key for this year and rewarding the right people.
Another kind of issue that I thought of when I found out how they were allocating the spots was the idea, and it's been less prevalent in wrestling, but it's still an issue. The idea of conference realignments. You have schools that were in one conference 3 years ago, and the last 2 years ago, last 2 years they're in a new conference. So where do their allocations lie? Yeah. Did you, and again, I'm kind of operating on. I have more questions than I have answers in regards to the process. But if a team like UNI, who they were in the MAC and now they're in the Big 12, is that correct?
Correct.
And so, who got credit for UNI's bids?
Yep.
Or was it just based on the MAC got this many bids in this year and the Big 12 got this many bids in this year? Because the reality is, the way I would think that it would make sense to redraw this would be instead of counting qualifiers for the conferences, count qualifiers for the schools that are participating, and then draw them into the conferences they're currently in.
Yep.
And reallocate. That solves the Ivy problem. That solves the reallocation problem or the realignment problems as far as, teams that went from the Big 12 to the Pac-12 or teams that went from the MAC to the, to wherever. The SoCon, whatever these different qualifiers are, you put yourself in a position where you're dealing with the actual teams who are competing where they are competing now. It's like a cool combination. It's a cool combination of like historical data and like recent setting.
Yeah. And, listen, I know we're talking about how to fix this and it's easy. I appreciate the difficulty the NCAA has here. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, 100%.
Solution. Because other problems, what you just brought up, you used UNI, for example. Let's talk about the EWL. They are dissolved. And most of those teams, I believe, they're in the MAC now. So the MAC inherited a bunch of teams. So that data over the last 5 years has looked very different. Okay, so you've got that issue plus UNI leaving. You've got several teams coming in, one going out. Think about why we have the problem where we're at in the Big 12, where Northern Colorado, you go 5 years ago and, they weren't bringing the numbers that they are now in terms of qualifiers, right? They Coach Nickerson's there doing a good job, right? Developing that program. And so they have exponentially increased. And so, when you just use just the historical data in theory, and I was one of them, I thought it was a fair solution to it, but maybe what we see it looks like in reality, there has to be some adjustments. And I think things have to be revisited, like I said, but I can appreciate the issues that the NCAA is facing here.
Oh, absolutely. They're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
They can't. It's impossible.
And that's true every year when allocations come out, no matter, in normal years too.
Yep. No doubt. I mean, you look at us, we're taking 7 or 8 just about every year anymore. A few years ago, that wasn't the case. So you're right. That is every year, you can't solve that problem.
One thing that I do like and Coach, you mentioned it a few minutes ago that, it's different this year, and maybe this is something that does stick around, is, basically doubling the number of at-large bids per weight class. Like, that sort of seems like, okay, yeah, we understand to do that, we have to take a few automatic quality spots away, but it does give flexibility, not just in a COVID year, but in a regular year too. Is that something that maybe sticks around, that they keep the at-large pool a little bit deeper?
No, I think they feel really good. My sense of everything I've heard the last few years is they like the system that they have and how that data is used. I mean,
okay,
they tweak like the coaches rank, right? I think we often go back, where are the coaches objective? Should that ranking, be counted less or more? Do we even have the coaches do it? How should that work? So there's tweaks there, but I really believe they like what they have, where it's 3 or 4, wild cards available based on the data and who's meeting the criteria.
okay.
This year, there's such a limited set of data to go by that I think you just have to err really big on the number of wild cards and try to balance it out that way if you can.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You bring up the whole idea of should the coaches rank, Tony. That was a hot topic in the media this week. There were a lot of people calling for a media poll instead of a coaches poll. And they were talking about, who should rank and so on and so forth. I find it interesting. I don't know that I personally find it totally viable, just because of the, I guess, limited number of rankings that are out there right now. I feel as though, I look at the differences in the rankings that are out there now. We track, I think, 5 different entities as far as our historical data goes for the rankings. And it's amazing to me how week to week, how different they can be.
Yeah.
And how they, they all have different systems, and they all have different values of whether that criteria ranks. And not to say that coaches aren't any different. I just think that there are, when you're talking in regards to the media, the fewer the polls there are, the more an outlier can affect that set of data.
Sure.
And they talk about throwing out the high and the low, but at the same time, you still have to have enough people doing it to create a good subset of data that can be usable. And so I'm just not sure there are enough people out there that are devoting the amount of time that it would require to make it a viable option.
Sure. I think it's been problematic for those same reasons with the coach, right? I mean, we worry about the media or whatever panel you would put together, being able to do a good job with it for reasons you just stated. Same thing goes for coaches, right? Are they biased? Do they want to help their own conference out? Do they want to help their own team out? Is it truly objective? You know what I mean? In a year like this, we don't get to see as many people, right? Like, we're just in the Big Ten. So, it's an interesting year where we've got to try to rank. We have a weight class that we're responsible for ranking as well here. And, it's tough. You can look at results, but results don't say everything either, right? So, and we talked a little bit about that, like Devin, with Barnett, getting side rolled and headlocked or pinned, so how
it's a loss on paper, but it's a little deceiving, right?
Right. And you see bigger swings this year because of it, because there is a fewer sample size, sample size is smaller. So I think it's problematic. It's something that we'll be talking about long after we get off here, and even into the future years where, we go back to win percentage and RPI, and those are pretty reliable in a normal year, given the number of dates of competition and things like that. But I don't know where the solution lies in terms of these rankings. Honestly, it's something I go back and forth with all the time.
Yeah, I like you said, I don't think that there's any hope of solving that problem today, unfortunately. But it definitely makes for interesting conversation, and it will be interesting to see how the NCAA shakes out their decision over the next, what is it? Today's the 17th. So they've got 2 weeks to figure it out, give or take.
Well, and maybe they won't revisit it at all. Maybe the book
could be too.
that deal, only they know.
we don't know. So, well, we'll continue to monitor that and keep an eye on it. But, the goal is to get to March and get the best kids there. And hopefully we're able to do that. Transition a little bit. Let's look back at the week that was. Number 17 Purdue went up to number 22 Michigan State on Friday and got a nice little road win to finish up our regular season road schedule. Took 6 of 10 matches from the Spartans to win 23-12. Tony, what were some of your overall thoughts and impressions of the duel?
Well, I thought, obviously overall you go on the road, you get a nice win, solid performance, right? Solid performance. Number of guys looked very good. The guys who won, by and large, went out and really took control of the match and never gave it back to their opponent, right? Positive for Jake Rundell, right? He wore his opponent out and capitalized, at the end. He just outlasted him, and I thought he did a nice job keeping the pace high and making it a physical hand fight, kind of a match. So good on him for that Big Ten win. Young guy, out there been battling hard for us and got a nice win for himself. I thought Parker really did a nice job taking control of the match and never taking his foot off the gas. He wrestled smart. He had a young man who was kind of a Greco background, hooks and wants upper body and really wrestled a very smart match in picking and choosing his attacks, and then did work on top as well. Stayed in trouble, never got into any real trouble, knew how to stay out of trouble and then still get to his stuff. So really thought Parker showed really well. Griffin got back in the lineup, after being out the week before. So nice to see him go out. A little bit of a slow match early on. And I would say both him and Kendall maybe were a little slow early on. And I guess when you saw him score, he came out of that scramble and put his opponent on his back. That really got him going, where later on, he's on top. He went after the cow catcher and put him on his back again. It kind of really got Griffin going. And so I'd like to see him maybe kind of wind it up a little sooner in the bout. Come out like he did, the way he finished. Because, he really took control of that match after he got a few points. He felt good about what he was doing, and you could just see it, right? Like he just really took control and finished strong. Kendall, I thought the best thing for Kendall in that match is he got taken down first, right? There was not much early, maybe a little too much respect. And then, he gave up the first takedown, and he was like, "Oh, I got to go, man." His sense of urgency went up. And he put the pedal down, and he answered right back with a takedown, right? Even the score, and then we get to OT, and then that exchange was really, really impressive. If you look at all the action that took place, in that clip, I think you had put out, he put 2 or 3 things together before he finally got to the single on the other side and cut off the finish. So that's the kind of stuff you want to see him put together a little sooner in the match. All right. He's capable of it. Same with Griffin, but they found it and they got it going. And I thought that was important for them. Max Lyon did a nice job. That scramble early, he didn't give up the scramble. There was a couple times when you really thought, the Michigan State kid was gonna finish. He had the high ground on the scramble and looked like he may even catch a cradle. And Max kept wrestling and fighting and got a stalemate out of it. And, everybody coming out of that was breathing deep, right? Like his opponent was, Max was, but then Max was the one who went right back and pulled the trigger, got on the high leg attack, finished big through him and put a ride on him. And really that was the match. He grabbed right then. That was the moment. And if Max would have stood around or let that kid kind of work back in, who knows how she goes, but Max was the one who took the shot and jumped right back in and kind of made it go back his way. So I thought that was big. Impressive win for him. And then obviously at heavyweight, Jamarcus coming through, had the big move, very, very slow match, by and large. But Jamarcus made his move from bottom when he put him on his back pay off, right? Like that opened it up. And so for the lack of action, now Michigan State had to come back at us, hard and just wasn't able to do it. So, he was efficient. I would say the best way to say is he was efficient in his wrestling. That one hold where he put him on his back for 2 and 2, was big, and it allowed him to control the match from there on out. So, where we were short a little bit, I would say it was, specifically 65 and 74. I thought we let them hang around a little too much. We needed to carry a little bit more pace or make that match go our way a little bit more. Garrett had opportunities and I think he's in 3 or 4 times on single legs and wasn't able to finish. And then we got caught on the edge where the guy was able to sneak a shot on us. And that might've been his only shot of the match. There may have been one before that maybe, but we kind of got lulled to sleep on the edge towards the end of the match. He took us down and rode us out, and we've got to make it, in my opinion, a harder match and give ourselves a little more opportunities, because you can't let a guy slow it down and sneak one in on you. Okay. And then I thought that happened at 65. And then the same thing happened at 74. I thought Emil worked a little harder on his feet. You know what I mean? He was in on a few more shots, but we needed to take him down twice in regulation to make that our match. You got a guy who's top and that's where he's going to try to win the match by and large. And so we needed to get in a few more attacks and work harder on our finishes to open that match up and make it come our way. Still though, I guess where I was upset, we talk about him being top, Drew Hughes, right? Mm-hmm. Emil was thinking the same thing. So he quit moving his feet and he quit wrestling in the OT. So, Hughes takes the shot and sneaks in the takedown. Didn't even need to go to the mat. Emil was probably thinking, well, he's not wanting to shoot because he's going to want to go to the 30-second ride outs. And then we fell asleep. We got lulled to sleep there and he snuck one in on us. So hopefully there are valuable lessons learned for both of those young men, where we've got to do a better job of creating more pace and creating more action, because clearly our guys who did that, were successful. And I feel like we'll always be more successful that way because we're in shape and we do want to wrestle hard. We are gritty and we're tough. So I think we've just got to do a better job in some of those instances of carrying a little more pace and creating action. Still wrestle smart, still got to wrestle smart, but we've got to find ways to create action, in our own style. Maybe the only one I haven't talked about here yet. Well, there's 2, I guess. I thought, Devin really wrestled the other kid's match. You know what I mean? That we got, we were in early on a nice takedown attempt and got really sloppy on the finish and gave up kind of the Merkle for 2. And then we were down for a while where it kind of hurt the start of the match. And so we've got to be cleaner in getting to our positions. I thought it was too much of the Michigan State kids match. We wrestled from his positions too much and too often, and we paid for it. So we've got to be better at it with our game plan and our execution of that game plan. Okay. And I'm confident we can do that. But I think that, Devin was in this morning, 8 a.m. with us, watching film. We watched film and went over some things again. And I think he'll clear that up as we go. With Thomas, another bummer, another situation. We didn't get hit for back points early this time, but we're up 5-3 late. And we got caught in an upper body situation, defending, and he put us on our back, and that really opened the match up. I almost felt like in that situation, if he would have turned down when he started to get in trouble, he started to really get his arm collapsed, and you could see he was going to head towards his back. He needed to turn down, fight down. It's 5-5 and then work for the escape, right? But we fought a little too long in the position, and Caffey's a good kid. He made us pay for it. So
he's ranked top 5 in the country for a reason.
Right. So there's good and there's bad there, right? I mean, Thomas is proving that he will be in the match with the very best of anybody. And so we've got to eliminate some of those big, mistakes that we gave up near fall to good kids. That's a harder deal. You give up 4 to win those matches, right? So a lot of positives, even where we lost. Like I said, there's some positives, but we've got to be able to wrestle our match more often. Where we lost, we got caught in their matches too much.
Yeah. Couple notes kind of throughout the duel. We talked a little bit about Griffin Parriott. We talked about some of his stuff. I wanted to bring up yesterday, we were looking at a little bit of the film in your office while we were waiting for something else. And when we slowed down and broke down his first big move where he went to his back. It was pretty incredible. It was a nutty sequence of action that that Griffin wrestled through with just, I mean, you hope he was intentional about it, but at the same time, it's like, man, if he was intentional about it, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, it's, those are the things. And I kind of alluded to this a little bit, like, when Griffin is, just wrestling and flowing, he has great mat awareness. He's a high IQ, right? He has a high wrestling IQ. And so when he's moving and he's just wrestling and scrambling, he understands positions and how to take the action where he wants to go. And I thought, the kid kind of ducked in there on him, right? Was peeking out and ducking, and Griffin just wrestled. He knew he had to get his hips through and turn down, but it just so happens that when he came through and started to turn down, the kid went over to his back, you know what I mean? And he settled. So, it's just wrestling IQ, I would call it. You know what I mean? Like knowing where you're at, being able to control your body and settle. Like, it was just great awareness by him in a funky situation.
Yeah, I didn't. When I saw it live, I was too far away, and B, I don't have that level of understanding of wrestling to see how, like, he basically, like you said, he caught him in almost like a cement mixer position.
Yeah.
And was able to, like you said, caught him and settled in and nearly got the fall.
Yeah, no, and those are the things, you work very hard all week, all year for that matter. You're intentional about your training, right? But when you go out and it's time to compete, the word we always use with the kids, it's got to be instinctive. You trust the work and you just make it instinctive. Yeah, you still want to make sure you're staying solid in your positions and, those little things that are key to you. But man, hey, it's instinctive. Let it go, react, wrestle. And I would say that's what you were seeing out there with him. He was just reacting to the situation and, came out on top in a good spot.
Yep. One other thing I thought was interesting to note, while we had wrestled a very limited schedule, Michigan State was the first time on the year that we have been to overtime in a duel. We had not been to sudden victory yet until the Michigan State duel. Kendall obviously was first, came through with a 6-4 win over a really nice young freshman up at Michigan State. That Chase Saldate, he's going to be pretty good. And
he's got some skills. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to mention, we had Dylan Lighty last year, who was Mr. Overtime.
Yeah.
Kid went 10-0 last year in overtime,
right?
Which is incredible. But lost in that was the fact that Kendall had a nice little year in overtime as well. Kendall was 4-1 last year and is now 5-1 on his career. He when the heat gets on, when it gets tight, he tends to rise to the occasion. And he definitely did on Friday.
Yeah, I've mentioned this in the past when we talked about his freshman year. He shows composure, right? Last year he was a freshman, a young guy, wasn't his battle tested. But no matter what the situation was, no matter how or why he ended up in OT, he was calm, he was composed, and then he'd execute. He'd wrestle hard, right? He didn't have a hard time wrestling hard late. He may be tired. He may have wrestled a really poor match to end up in OT, but he was able to kind of, bear down, focus on what he had to do and take care of business. And he's been that guy, he's just been that guy since he's been here last year, so, you see it continues. And then I'm proud of the kids because we are in shape and they have every right to feel good about as we go deeper into the match, it should turn more their direction.
Absolutely. Those were the overwhelming, you talked about the scramble and Max's match. That was incredible. That was, I think the clip came out at about 1 minute and 15 seconds of very high paced, continuous action between two very, high level wrestlers at the weight, two guys who have both been ranked in the top 10 in the country at one time or another this season at 184. It's Malcheski, by the way.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Malcheski.
I wouldn't have been able to do it. Somebody from, Zach Fisher up at Michigan State, I was talking to him before the duel and Zach said Malcheski. And I was like, oh, that's how you say that. Interesting. Good but yeah. But yeah, that was like you said, that was a huge event in the match that obviously resulted in no points, but had a huge influence in the outcome of the match.
Yeah, I mean that's why you wrestle every situation, because it sends a message and it takes the match in a direction that you need it to go. I mean, even if you give up the score there, I mean, it could have gone the other way and Max could score, but that guy, he has to pay a price to get those points. That's the thing. If you're stingy and you make a guy pay a price, it's going to come back your way. And you are sending a message about what the tone of the match is going to be. If you just put your head down and you give up the points easy, well, you're sending the other message. So, that's something that guys need to understand. Good competitors get it. Like, we're not going to give up easy points, and we're going to make the guy work for everything.
Absolutely. Cory, you want to talk a little rivalry week?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Maybe if I could figure out how to say that would probably rivalry week.
Rivalry week. It is. It's tough to say. Yeah, IU comes to town here Monday night. The duel switched from Sunday to Monday and picked up live on the Big Ten Network. So good to get that national TV exposure, even if it does take me off the call, sadly. It'll be a fantastic event. You guys looking for your 11th straight duel victory over the Hoosiers, and just it's the final duel of the Big Ten season, final duel of this 2021 abbreviated campaign. What can we expect from the Hoosiers coming in here Monday night?
Well, I mean, listen, it's as you said, it's the in-state rival, right? So they're going to be juiced. They're going to want to come in and they're going to want to do a good job, right? They're going to want to get after us and see if they can't turn around a decade of history, right? I'm sure that's what's on their mind and what they want to do. Same thing for us. I'm not taking this lightly. We've been competing well, and I expect that to continue. And if anything, we need to kind of be working towards that peak that we're going to need at Big Tens. We've got a long week here. And so honestly, my message is we need to have some good volume in terms of training and effort intensity early this week. We'll taper down towards the end and get ready for the duel. But it's about, this time of year, you need to be sharp in terms of understanding what your match plan is, right? How you're going to execute your shape, how you're making weight. Like, I expect those guys to be sharp and prepared and to go out and get after people and score as many points as they possibly can.
As you said, it's kind of a situation where, we kind of have to flip the script on the guys a little bit, because we, having won 10 in a row, we're the hunted a little bit in this situation. Mm-hmm. But we don't want our guys to feel that way. And we want them to go out and be aggressive and be the hunters and go get all those points. But when you face an opponent who's going to have a chip on their shoulder, like IU will, and the way they're going to approach the match, how do you get the guys ready for that?
Well, listen, you do it all year long. Okay. I memean, that's my answer. When people ask you how you get ready for the best teams too, right? How do you get ready for an Iowa? How do you get ready for Penn State? How do you get ready for them all year long? You know what I mean? Now, there shouldn't be any problems with extra motivation, right? It's an in-state school, so motivation shouldn't be a problem. I mean, my goodness, we haven't been able to wrestle a full schedule, so every opportunity to compete should be extremely valued, right? Like, to have the excitement and to be thankful for the opportunity to compete, that should not be an issue. But where this is won and lost, in my opinion, is how you approach your year all year long. Like, your hard training, your willingness to do more than the other guy for the last several months and over the past year, this is where this shows up, right? This is not a, hey, we turn it on now because it's rivalry week. Mm-hmm. You don't do that. No, you're ready because all year long you've worked your tail off and you've wanted this, and here another opportunities in front of you to be better and to work towards your peak. And now everything you've trained for is, kind of coming to a head. So I don't look at it as you got to turn something on. They should have a huge freaking chip on their shoulder, meaning our guys should have a huge chip on their shoulder about what they're doing and how they're approaching their business. Because you got an opportunity to compete. against a team that's in your state. And then B, you're looking to go to Big Tens and really accomplish some things. So I don't see motivation or that chip that you need to have, that edge. Maybe sometimes I call it more of an edge. You got to have an edge to yourself, in your mindset. I don't see that. Shouldn't be an issue. Better not be.
Better not be. couple matchups to look at. 49 Parriott versus Brooks. Hopefully that one happens. That should be a good top 20 matchup. Good chance for Griffin to see Graham Brooks, who I know he's seen before. And then at 74, Amel's got a good opportunity against their talented freshman Donnell Washington, who is having a nice rookie year, and a good chance for Amel to get another great match before Big Ten.
Yeah, DJ Washington. Throw Coach Vega a little shout out, right? Leroy Vega, who obviously has been with us the last 2 years, was
Portage's finest
coach. Yeah, Portage there. So shout out to Leroy. But no, it's they've got some good kids, and you've got to be ready. I think 25 could be another instance too, where I'm not sure who they'll send out. It could be Hudkins, it could be Moran, right? One of those two guys. But yeah, I would look at 25 as another quality matchup in the duel.
Yes. One other thing I was going to ask you about, Tony, is, we had a nice influx this year of young guys from the state of Indiana. And so sometimes, when guys come to Purdue, specifically from other states, some of them don't fully grasp the Purdue IU rivalry. They don't get it. But when you have kids coming from in-state, they have definitely a heightened awareness to it. I guess my question is does having the new guys, the new young guys from Indiana, has that stoked the fire at all? Has that brought some extra heat?
Well, I'm sure for them it does, right? I mean, because as you said, they are more acutely aware of it, right? Like that's maybe more built in to them and being raised in the state. But I'll tell you this, I don't think it takes very long to be in any of these programs to understand, right, that those matches are fun to be a part of, right? Like I always enjoyed Iowa State. That was fun. It was important. And just like I enjoy this now, I enjoy Purdue IU. It's fun. It's a big deal. You get more people interested, right? And what's going on. So we're on TV. It's an in-state rivalry. It should be a lot of fun. It should be important, right? And so you want guys to know that, and they need to understand that it is going to mean something. You know what I mean? It's not just another rung on the ladder. And I'm big on this. I'll probably sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I always say it's important, right? Competing is important. This duel will be important. You don't make it special, right? Like you don't make any match special, because then you run the risk of, being too conservative or not going out and doing the right things, right? Because you're not trying to screw it up. So it's going to be important for us. It won't be special. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the way I frame it to the guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cory, anything else on the Boilermakers and the Hoosiers?
No, I don't think so. Good luck Monday night, Coach. Did we want to talk about the first round of coaches' rankings that came out within the last week?
We can touch on it briefly. We had 7 guys ranked in the first set of coaches' rankings, which is I think what we expected. It's a pretty solid number. Devin Schroeder earned a spot at 25. Parker Phileas, 41. Griffin Parriott was a top 10 guy at 49, as was Kendall Coleman at 157. Garrett Nienhouse snuck into the tail end at 165, which is great. Great for him that he's being noticed as a true freshman. Max Lyon at 184. Thomas Pinola at 197. Tom's been a funny one for me. Guy's 6-2. His only 2 losses are against 2 guys that are ranked in the top 5. And we're both close matches, and the guy keeps dropping in the rankings. It's cracking me up, and I totally understand it has nothing to do with Tom. It has more to do with like there's other upsets in the country, and other people are winning over some highly ranked people. But it's just amusing to me that he continues to have a breakout season, and nobody's throwing him much respect, and And I think it's great. I think he's going to go grab it at some point. And I don't think he's really worried about it, but it's a fun note to follow for sure.
Yeah. No, you can't be too concerned with others' opinions, right? I mean, that's
Right.
always said that. The opinions that matter are the ones that are in that room every day, right? His teammates who support him and his coaches who are working with him. Those are the opinions that matter. And as you said, I don't think he's too concerned. So we'll just keep your head down and you go to work.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how those continue to develop. Be interesting to see what the NCAA, if they do anything with the allocations as we continue this the march toward March.
No doubt.
Sneaking up on us. 8:00 Monday night, live on the Big Ten Network, the Boilermakers and the Hoosiers. Coach, go get number 11, all right?
Appreciate it, boys.
We'll catch y'all next week. Boiler up.